In the book of Daniel, a prophecy that would have dual representations was foretold. A stubborn end-time king, he-goat, was prophesied to arise from the west and attack a ram, Medo-Persia, with 2 unequal horns. I saw the ram, Medo-Persia, charging westward and northward and southward. No beast could stand before him, nor was there anyone who could rescue anything from his power, but he did as he pleased and magnified himself. As I was observing this, behold, a male goat, Greece, was coming from the west, rushing across the face of the whole earth without touching the ground, and the goat had a conspicuous and remarkable horn, Alexander the Great, between his eyes. Daniel chapter 8 verse 4-5 amp. This happened in the past during the reign of Alexander the Great, who conquered and ended the Medo-Persian reign. In my vision, I saw him come close to the ram, Medo-Persia, and he was filled with rage toward him, and the goat, Greece, struck the ram and shattered his 2 horns, and the ram had no strength to stand before him. So the goat threw him to the ground and trampled on him, and there was no one who could rescue the ram from his power. Daniel chapter 8 verse 7 amp. The he-goat, Alexander the Great, tried to grow exceedingly in power, but his power was cut down and divided into 4 kingdoms as prophesied by Daniel. Then the male goat magnified himself exceedingly, and when he was young and strong, the great horn, Alexander, was suddenly broken, and in its place there came up 4 prominent horns, among whom the kingdom was divided, one toward each of the 4 winds of heaven. Daniel chapter 8 verse 8 amp. After Alexander's death, his empire was divided among his 4 generals, prophesied as 4 horns facing the 4 winds of heaven and south, east, north and west. The 4 kingdoms were Lysimachus, who took Thrace and much of Asia Minor; Cassander controlled Macedonia and Greece; Ptolemy I ruled Egypt, Palestine, Cilicia, Petra and Cyprus. He founded the Ptolemaic dynasty, which lasted until the death of Cleopatra 7 in 30 BCE. Seleucus I Nicator ruled the remainder of Asia and founded the Seleucid Empire, which was comprised of Mesopotamia, the Levant, Persia, and part of India. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great, toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. Daniel chapter 8 verse 9 KJV. According to Daniel's prophecy, out of one of these 4 horns shall arise a little horn, that would put a stoppage to the daily sacrifice, leading to the desolation of the temple of God at Jerusalem. This happened during the reign of Antiochus IV Epiphanes of the Seleucid Empire, who led the first desolation of the Second Temple in Jerusalem by infringing on the Jewish daily sacrifice, and reducing it to a profane or common use for about 3 years. In history, he was known as an aggressor of the Jewish religion, as he changed laws and times during his reign against the Jewish traditions, with a penalty of death to everyone caught infringing on his directives. As a man of incredible terror, he entered Jerusalem in December 16, 168 BC, and carried massive massacre of men, women and children who stood on his way. He then led the desecration of the temple by offering a sacrifice to the Greek god Zeus, and even returned to Antioch with golden vessels from the temple in Jerusalem. The different kinds of desolations led by Antiochus IV Epiphanes at the temple during the 3 years were explicitly prophesied in Ezekiel chapter 8 verse 5-16. They included idol worshipping, hidden carvings used for worshipping beasts, women worshipping a false god called a Tammuz, and worshipping of the sun facing the east. A replica of the above history and desolation would be witnessed again in history, but this time, leading to the spoken end of this world. In fact, at a point in the book of Daniel, the narrative changed to reflect a futuristic event that would include the fall of stars, angels, from heaven, which coincides with happenings during the Great Tribulation. This apparently hardly applies to Antiochus IV, but point to a figure that would be his latter-day antitype, the beast, Antichrist. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Yeah, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced, and prospered. Daniel 8:1012 KJV. From the history just told, who is this present-day king of the West, he-goat? We are sure he is not the Antichrist, but his manifestations would spring up the Antichrist. The Western Hemisphere dominates major parts of the world comprising of mostly North America, South America, portions of Africa, Europe, western portions, Antarctica, extreme eastern tips of Siberia, Russia, and Asia. However, only America is considered to be a significant representation of the region due to their dominant presence in the region. Despite America's dominance in the region, we can clearly see that the Western Hemisphere houses fragments of the top 4 powers in the world today described as 4 horns in the Book of Daniel, United Kingdom, Europe, Asia, and Russia. The Book of Daniel prophesied that out of these 4 horns shall come a rather small horn that would be the Antichrist. These countries also have their national strengths represented with animal symbolisms today, Europe with lion, Russia with bear, United States with eagle, and China as dragon, all coinciding with the 4 representative faces of the beast in the Book of Daniel. Interesting thing to note in relation to the animal symbolisms is that Bible prophesied about the plugging off of the wings of the end-time beast prophesied in the Book of Daniel. Could this mean that United States would not play a vital role in some significant events leading to the second coming of Jesus? Could the current state of America under Trump's administration contribute to this? America can indeed be best described currently as a house divided among itself. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. Daniel 7 verse 4, 1-2 KJV. To fully understand Daniel's prophecies, a clear knowledge of the other present-day kings of the south, north and east would also be important. King of the South, as discussed in the Bible, has much part of its dominance within the Middle East regions and is aggressive enough to cause a violent retaliation from the King of the West, especially with its pushy foreign policies. Iran fits this description as it forms alliances with Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia, but excludes Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. Then I raised my eyes and looked, and behold, there in front of the canal stood a lone ram, the Medo-Persian Empire, which had 2 horns. The 2 horns were high, but one, Persia, was higher than the other, Media, and the higher one came up last. I saw the ram, Medo-Persia, charging westward and northward and southward. No beast could stand before him, nor was there anyone who could rescue anything from his power, but he did as he pleased and magnified himself. Daniel 8 verse 3-4 amp. The ram with 2 unequal heads is Iran-Iraq. Iran and Iraq are today separate nations with unique histories. Iran controls a larger territory, hence why the prophecy named it the higher horn. In this prophecy, the higher horn came up last as Iran became an Islamic republic in 1979, but Iraq was proclaimed a republic in 1958. Both are situated within the Middle East, but with slight differences in their government and cultural structures. Today we see the growing tensions between Iran and United States, with both nations constantly challenging each other. Iran always pushing for its own nuclear weapons, and other Muslim nations seeking alliances with European nations for refuge. The above dynamics is constantly evolving in our world today, especially as we see alliances formed in lieu of concerted efforts to fight the ISIS invasion and the reconfiguration of dominant powers at the corridor of Syria's age-long wars. Former enemies are seen forming new alliances, Israel and Saudi Arabia, Kurds in Syria, and long historical allies are clashing, Turkey and US. In this new chessboard, United States is losing their influence whilst Russia is gaining power, but the final winner of the game is yet to be named. As America loses its influence in the region, we can see the rising influence of Russia as it plays a significant role as the peacemaker. Russia, after its 2015 intervention, has revived an old sealed agreement with Iran, Iraq, and Syria, of which amongst its goals are to regain bases in the Mediterranean Sea and to counter US presence in Iraq, Israel, Jordan, and Turkey. All these have further strengthened the Russia-Iraq-Iran-Syria alliance. Although Russia is an intercontinental country bordering over Europe and Asia, it constitutes about 39% of the European land area and 15% of its population. Today, we see a thriving alliance between Russia and Germany as seen in their trading relationship. The modern-day king of the North would be the developing Russia-German relationship and ultimately the European superpower. This would be the modern-day king of the North and the revived Roman Empire. The king of the East is currently from Asia, as we see their emerging highlights in the awakening of their military and political relevance in the world today. The recent rise of China's influence, as a forerunner of Asia's power, is seen in their booming population and technological advancements as they compete with both America and Russia. In the Bible, we would see the role of Asia as they kings from the East join the last world conflict, War of Armageddon, which ushers in the second coming of Jesus. From these tales, we should understand how the duplicity of biblical prophecies in the book of Daniel would be replayed in our present world. The Antichrist would spring as the little horn from the revived wounded head of the end-time beast. The little horn would be responsible for the second temple desolation and intense persecution of believers at the last days. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Matthew 24 verse 15 KJV.